What's going on, family? What's going on? What's going down? What's shaking? Welcome to Jonathan Soul's podcast. This is Jonathan Soul speaking with you now. I got the honor and privilege of speaking to a pioneer. Somebody who I would say has boldly gone where no man has gone before, excavating and making a graphic novel, some relevant African history in the country of Sweden. I'm talking about the graphic novel Bodin and the Secret of Salmi and its illustrator and author, Eric Bashir. How you doing, brother?
And it's a great privilege to be in your virtual presence.
The pleasure's all mine, brother. The pleasure's all mine. So I said going where no man has gone before because in our first interview last year, you were talking about how you went to Sweden and you were part of this like TV show thing. And it was we'll say, interesting trip. And, you came back and you ended up with this idea of a graphic novel. Can you just go over that again for us?
So, I got back from this visit, this trip to Sweden. It was an all expenses paid trip. And what they did is they in this TV show in Sweden, they brought Americans of Swedish ancestry. So, my father's Black American or, so-called African American. My mother is a child of Swedish immigrants. Mm-hmm. So they were really intrigued by me. So they're like, man, you got to come on this show. So, after a few years going back and forth, finally decided to accept it. And they decided to take me. I went, had to deal with some real ignorance, frankly. Mm-hmm. And I was there for almost 2 weeks. I was glad to get home. I tell you that much. I was glad to get home. It was a beautiful country, but my experience was very negative.
Gotcha.
And dealing with racism there, and then just outright offensive racist Swedish Americans that I was with.
And so how did this idea for the graphic novel?
So I said, boy, this is really depressing.
Mm-hmm.
I have to take this negative feeling, I have to turn it into something positive, and not only positive, but redemptive.
Mm-hmm.
And so before I left, a friend of mine named Hussein had told me about Bodin, who was this 18th century African who was adopted by the Swedish queen in the 1750s. And he was a slave, but she did not enslave him. In fact, she adopted him, raised him as one of her own children. And he grew up to live a long life in Sweden, was a member of many secret societies, including the Freemasons, and wealthy and very intelligent. What I could find was about him historically was a lot of it was tainted with a lot of historical, racist interpretations.
What do you mean, racist interpretation?
So because he was a slave, a lot of the historians couldn't accept the fact that he was an equal with the royal children of the queen. In fact, he was a child. He was in the royal family. And they would always relegate him to things like jester and clown and savage. And, these are the words that ignorant white folks use of intelligent young black youth. You ever notice that?
That's true.
You never know nowadays, right?
Yeah.
Young black youth.
And nowadays, they would have called Bodin a thug.
A thug.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so, and when you read his diary, which I was privileged to lead a Kickstarter to translate, and that diary is available at BodinSecret.com, and it is free for the world as a PDF. Yeah. This man was brilliant. I mean, he was brilliant, and he was very spiritual. I believe his family was Muslim, but as a child, he's 7 years old, and you're going to be in the Swedish court. They're going to convert you to their religion, so he was into the Christian religion, and you can tell the way he wrote. And so I said, you know what? I got to tell this man's story. And it was so hard to find anything really. So I said, well, let me do an historical fiction. You know, like Abraham Lincoln, zombie killer or vampire killer, right? I mean, it kind of made Abe Lincoln's life a little more interesting. You know, I began writing ideas down, and 3 years later, those ideas turned into an outline. That outline turned into a story. That story turned into a full script with art direction. And I wrote and illustrated this Badin and the Secret of the Sami.
Now you did
your question.
No, you did. You did a tremendous work, and you were kind enough to give me like an advance copy. And
Yes.
number one, man, this is like 116 pages, man. You did a hell of a job.
Thank you, sir.
And the thing that's, of course, the art is impressive. You know, I definitely like your art. You also included pages from his diary, and you did a tremendous service not only to the African American or African community around the world by getting his running that Kickstarter, getting his diary translated, and it wasn't just in English, right? You translated in a couple other languages, right?
This one was in French and Swedish. So Badin was fluent in French, Swedish, German, and I think something else.
Okay, gotcha. So you did a tremendous. So now everybody can, you know, search that and dig into that history. But the story is like a little mystery. So it's these, you know, he starts out Badin is little, and there's some, you know, some trauma in the beginning or whatever, and then you see how strong-willed and how positive, optimistic the little boy is, and then through the novel you start to see that those characteristics of curiosity, always questioning things, and being fearless kind of serves him as we watch him grow up, and this mystery is it's a few years long, right? This like, what are the years that's covered by this graphic novel?
So for this graphic novel, you're looking at a span of approximately 30 years.
Wow.
Because I start as he's an old man. So maybe it'd be about 60 years actually, because he starts as an old man and then wakes up from a dream about as he was a child, dreaming as events that happen in a child. I open it. How can I say? I break a lot of rules. Maybe you've noticed in the panel counts. The panel counts are not standard. A lot of the panel counts nowadays in comics are 6 at the most. So if you notice, the first page is 16 panels of non sequitur images, but they're all literary allusions to future acts in the graphic novel. So nothing is disconnected. It's just disjointed, like a dream. And he wakes up and he's an old man. And he talks about when he was in his 20s. And then he talks about when he was a little boy. And then that's where the story starts. Yeah.
So one of the main peoples in this novel, at the crux of it, is the Sami people. Talk a little bit about the Sami people.
Yes. So the Sami, these are real people in Northern Europe, indigenous to Europe, but Northern Europe considerably, because we're talking about Sweden, Norway, Finland. These people have a totally different language from anything that's spoken there, and their culture is totally different. And these are the first people of Sweden. And historically, they have been written out of ancient Swedish history. They love to talk about the kings and the queens and the Vikings and all that stuff, but for some reason they keep leaving these Sami people out. And so what I did is I did a lot of research on North and South Sami culture. These are kind of distinct language groups. And the South Sami is more rare. And that's when they're called South, that's because they're in the southern end of southern half of Sweden. And they were pretty much ethnically cleansed. They were pretty much victims of genocide. People don't like to admit it, but it's just the truth when you look at the evidence. And these people are at the heart of the story.
Okay.
Because their secret is part of the future survival of humanity. Now, this is where the fictional aspect comes in. So out of respect for existing real Sami culture, I made up a Sami community, a Sami group called the Varva Sami. And so these people are who Badin eventually meets, crosses paths with. And then we learn about the secrets of the Sami.
Wow. So, of course, we don't want to give that away, but I want to direct the listeners to badinsecret.com, Badin, Badin, secret.com. Of course, there's a link in this little, in the description of the podcast you're listening to. And not only when you go to badinsecret.com, you can find, would you call them prequels, like the mini sagas that you put out last year?
Exactly. Okay. And
so
the mini sagas are the prequel. So those were already published, and those have been available. And then they were recently compiled into one book.
Okay.
And that's also on the website. And that's where, when you ask me, so what is the time span? Well, if you include the mini sagas, the prequel, the time span is 10,000 years.
Wow.
Because I start the first prequel back in ancient European history, before the Europeans existed. Wow. So I have a mystical time, a magical time of these indigenous people and how they are working against an enemy that just came up, an extremely powerful enemy. I don't want to spoil it.
Yeah, don't spoil it.
And of course, that is linked to Badin as well, because you look at those mini sagas, the third mini saga is real special to me, because that gives a 10th century link to the 18th century Black Swede.
Wow.
So,
and there's a population of Black Swedes there now, correct?
That's right. That's right. And there's a lot. Let me tell you one thing. Sweden is number one in the world when it comes to adoption of non-white children.
What?
Yep.
They beat out America, like the white families adopting the little Asian babies. They beat us on that.
Yep.
Wow.
And there's whole communities of Koreans and Chinese with Swedish last names. Same with Africans. There's a brother who, a young man, he looks just like Badin at his age. And he's a comedian. His name is Fernando Hermansson.
Wow.
And he is an Afro-Colombian who was adopted by a Swedish family.
Wow.
And he plays Badin in a short film.
Oh, that's cool.
And he plays him as a dignified equal of the king.
That's beautiful. Is that a project connected with what you're doing, this graphic novel, or something separate?
No, it's separate.
Okay.
But we did cross paths, so I hope to form some kind of alliance.
Oh, that would be beautiful. That would be beautiful. Yeah, I'm not shy to say I hope that every podcast that hears me, because I know a lot of podcasts listen to me, and the podcasts that listen to me are bigger and have larger audiences, and that's cool. I dig you guys. I respect you. Have Eric Bashir on your show,
man,
because this book has, to me, it does three really important things. One, it kind of places the African, right now, Afrofuturism is a big deal, right? Projecting the African person into the future and the whole bit, and that's cool.
Right.
You know what I mean? But to see I don't know what you call it, but to see the African in the past with this fictional treatment is just as important.
Yes.
It's just as important. So we got that linkage there too. The history and the work that Eric put in comes through in the material. So not only if you go buy this book, you got to go to his site, because the brother's diary is available for you for free. He put that work in there. Diary. Yeah, you got it in English, you got the PDF, and you got the hardcover.
And there's also I'm writing fictional Twitter diaries.
Yep.
For all the main characters, including Badin. So you can go back to all the way of May of 2016 and read all their little tweets from the 18th century.
Yeah.
And if you read them carefully, you'll see how they all start to build up, and they eventually connect with each other in the graphic novel.
It's beautiful. And now, correct me if I'm wrong, Eric, but for the podcasters that have you on their show, do you have some kind of deal or special for them, something like that?
Well, I'm gonna tell you, I have an exclusive one for listeners of Jonathan Soul's podcast,
Righteousness. Okay, right. Tell us about that.
And anybody who's listening to this can go to jonathansoul.com.
Yep.
Check out the link for the latest podcast.
Yep.
And our brother has a link to a special page.
Yeah.
Where listeners can get the graphic novel in print or electronic ahead of the May 1st release date. So if you're listening to this and it's not May 1st yet, and you're a Jonathan Soul listener, you get to buy the graphic novel before anybody else.
Fantastic. That's beautiful, and I appreciate that, man. And as we record this, we're 25 days out. 25 days, 3 hours, 17 minutes, 30-some seconds. You have the counter on your site.
That's right.
So let me ask you this. Through this process of discovering about, Badin and the contributions that he made and so forth, I mean, at what point did you get inspired to say, hey, I need to tell this guy's story?
When I got back from Sweden, I thought of all the blacks and Asians and Arabs that lived there, of Asian and Arab and African descent, who suffer great discrimination. Especially housing discrimination is terrible in Sweden. It's worse than it is here.
Wow.
Yeah, it's bad. It's bad. It's really bad.
So they got like serious ghettos there, and
yes. And the social network, the social support network, is much better in a sense compared to the United States.
Okay.
But the way things are distributed there are done differently. So the results are different.
Gotcha.
But my point is, they don't have anybody. I mean, they got to live there, and they grew up there. I've met so many Swedes that look like me and look like you, and darker, and that's all they know. They don't speak any other language but Swedish.
Wow.
But they have no heroes in history. They have no precedent, except when they point out Badin, they say, oh, well, he was just a butler. Well, I'm saying no. Now, he wasn't just a butler. He was a hero.
Right.
And not only that, but I'm going to give him mythical status.
Mythical status. That's beautiful.
He's going to be the Apollo. Okay? Like Apollo probably was just some dude.
Right.
It was like, smart and had a lot of money or something. Or some talents. And he became a god over thousands of years. So I'm not saying I want to make Badin a god, but what I'm saying is, let's make a hero, a new Swedish hero who's black. And in some ways, he's more Swedish than the people who say they are real Swedes.
Right.
Because of his values. And I touch on that. You may not catch these things, but every page is full of symbolism and subtleties that kind of smack the stereotypes and say, hey, look at Badin. Take him seriously.
Yeah.
Take these black people in your midst seriously. Take these indigenous people in your midst seriously. Because they're the answer to your future, because you're not going to make it, frankly, Western world, if you keep disregarding and disrespecting the indigenous people.
Yeah. Yeah, man, that's actually more truthful than a lot of people realize. I mean, we could talk in America about birth rate declines amongst our white brothers and sisters. We could talk about, I don't want to go dark, but we all need each other. Let's put it like that. We all need each other, and it's not just an American problem, not just a Swedish problem. It's a problem all over the West.
That's right.
All over the West. And Badin and the efforts behind it is part of that solution. So let me ask you this. Not only are you a graphic novelist, but you also have another business. And this might be an aside, but this is my show, whatever. You also have another business where you talk about creating clip art and stock art and stock images. Talk about that business.
Yeah, so if you look on Shutterstock, iStock, Dreamstime, Fotolia, and type in certain keywords for images you're looking for, whether it's boulders, black Swedes, beans, and whatever, you might find a picture of mine. So I make drawings of everyday things. The mundane and the obscene.
Right.
Some of my latest are caricatures of the that orange demon in the White House.
I saw that, man. I saw that.
Yeah. So that's another thing I've done for over 5 years. I've been a stock art illustrator.
That's beautiful. That's beautiful. And before that, when we were talking last year, I believe, your photo retouch business. I mean, it has a photo retouch component and a teaching component. Can you talk about that?
Yeah, so since 1999, I've also offered photo retouching services to photographers, ad agencies, and publishers. And at photorestorationbasics.com, I have an entire course, a Photoshop course.
Beautiful.
For beginners and people with some experience to get you up to speed and comfortable doing your own photo retouching and restoration.
And why is that important? You know, is it because we got an old picture of grandma that maybe cracked a little bit and we need something for the family reunion, or we want to post it on Facebook but it's jacked up? I mean, is that what people go to photorestorationbasics.com for?
Well, they go to photographics.pro if they want to hire someone.
Okay.
But if they want to learn how to do it, they'd go to photorestorationbasics.com.
Gotcha.
And then they'd learn how to do it. And it's very important that if you inherit a photo album from your parents, your grandparents, a cousin, and aunt and uncle, you got to scan those babies in.
Yeah.
And you have to digitize them, because guess what? Photographs are like us. They're organic. They're made of paper. They decay.
Yeah.
So if you scan them now, you will preserve them at their current state. You see? And when you scan them, you got to do it right. The only way you can do it right is if you know how to do it right. So for many, many years, I've been teaching people how to do that.
That's beautiful. It seems like you've been in the service industry forever.
Yeah.
You're either serving people as an educator, you're serving people as a photo retoucher, and now you're serving people as a stock art creator, and now a novelist, almost like a fictional historian.
Yeah, it feels like it, brother. And I tell you, this Badin, he's, they call him, Badin is related to a French word. They like to say trickster.
Okay.
But I've also found another interpretation that for some reason they never say, and it's called clever. And so Badin, even after death, he's very clever because he's all in my life. And I think about him every day, and I want to tell people about him. So yeah, I'm really into this thing.
That's beautiful. So yeah, family. So you'll be able to go to once this podcast is posted, which should be Friday. That'll be like the 7th of April. You'll be able to go to jonathansoul.com, click on the link, and I have it on the homepage, and you'll be able to buy the graphic novel early because it comes out on May 1st to the rest of the folks, but you'll be able to get it sooner thanks to Eric's generosity. Eric, is there anything else you want to share before we give your contact information for you on social media and your businesses?
So, I would like your listeners to get the graphic novel, get the mini sagas, and on the release date, we're also going to have a game.
Really?
Yeah, we have a little Scratch. It's with the Scratch platform.
Okay.
And it's kind of like a trivia game, and it's called the Stallo War.
Okay.
And it's really kind of cool. My son wrote it up. He did the scripting, and I did the art.
Oh, that's beautiful.
We're making a whole kind of world.
So this is a family affair.
It's a family affair.
Oh, that's beautiful, man. It's nothing I'm down with more than the support of black family. Go ahead, brother.
It is, and it's real. And I paid him too.
Okay.
Yeah. So I didn't rip him off,
That's beautiful. That's beautiful.
But it's a whole world. So I want your listeners to explore it. When you get into this graphic novel, there are layers upon layers of prose in the artwork and in the story. And I wrote the story first because that's what you're supposed to do. If you want to make a graphic novel, they say, or a comic book, write the story first.
Right.
And the composition, I want you to study that. I want you to look for the symbolism. I want your listeners to find enlightenment from it. And then share that with me, share that with others, because I would like to learn what you see and learn about how unique Swedish culture is in general. Because as Americans, people in America, we don't really know much about Sweden. We think about some stereotypes.
Yeah.
But it's more than that. And look at how someone who doesn't quote unquote look Swedish is actually very Swedish.
Yeah.
And think about that with our culture here in America. And what is our potential? This was an orphan. This was a slave. This was what they call a monkey. That's what they called him. They called him a monkey. They called him awful things.
Yeah.
And look at how great he became. And that's what we can do. And we can inspire our youth, to do that. Yeah. Even if they're adopted. I mean, imagine that, an orphan too.
Yeah, we talked off mic about how your novel falls in that sweet spot between like young adult fiction because of the mystery and some of the thriller aspects of the narrative. And then, of course, it's safe for kids to read, like the little ones. So yes. It's like that perfect, but it's interesting enough, obviously, for adults because you're talking about, some real history, some real people. Yes. And I'm flipping through the story, and this plot is very well thought out, and the characters, particularly Badin and his brothers and sisters, are very well developed.
And I thank you. And if for those people who study these characters in history, they're going to find that this is who they were.
Yeah.
The queen, Lovisa Ulrika, that's exactly how she acted. It's exactly the prince, Crown Prince Gustav. There's I'll tell you something, and I know some people are going to get upset, but especially those who know the history of the Crown Prince. I present a reason why he went down in history as being someone who didn't like women. And I won't say any more than that.
Yeah, you have to. We need to get the book. Yeah.
Totally turn it on its head, and then I even inject my own mother's personal history into it.
Oh, that's beautiful. Okay, okay.
So you're gonna find one of the characters in there, Anna Olsdottir. One of them, she's an actual ancestor of mine on my mother's side.
Wow.
And her father.
Okay.
And I want to say for the ladies who read comics or who don't read comics, you're gonna like this book, anyways. But women are over half of the characters.
Yeah.
And women in this book fight and are tough.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and I think that's kind of cool.
Yeah, man. Yeah. I mean, there was one scene where I'm not gonna give everything away. They were in the woods and they were looking at this guy, and then one guy pulled the gun out on the son. I think it was Gustav.
Yep.
And then Badin came back with a stick and bam.
Yep.
Over the back of the head, and then I think another guy came, and I think the daughter took him down, or something like that.
The Anna Olsdottir, the peasant girl.
Yeah, exactly. So,
yeah,
it's. I mean, it starts out, you know, with some tragedy, whatever, and then it develops into these children getting a whiff of this mystery and something. You know, some ill shit going down.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, some stuff that threaten the royal family. Maybe it's something else or whatever. There's a book that disappears, and it's all this kind of stuff that's kind of weaved down throughout. And then you get to the back of the graphic novel, and then you see how much of this stuff is based in truth, is based in history.
And, you know, one other thing I wanted to point out is when you open it, when you open the first page, the first image you see on the graphic novel is a reindeer.
Okay.
It's a reindeer. And why is that? Why in the world am I going to have that?
Yeah, I was curious about that myself.
Yeah. Now if you're of Sami culture, you're like, oh yeah, reindeer. Mm-hmm. Because the reindeer is central. Is central, absolutely at the heart of Sami culture.
Wow.
That is what they raise. That is what they grow. They have hundreds of names for reindeer of different types at different ages, in different stages of their lives.
Wow.
They use the reindeer for everything, and they count the reindeer as wealth.
Wow.
And the horns of the reindeer, of the male, of the buck, are a symbol of the gods. And it has been that way from antiquity, even among other indigenous cultures. The bull, the horns of the bull. This is why in Spain they have that matador and they slay the bull. Why are they slaying the bull? They're slaying the symbol of the Moor, of the black god that ruled over them.
Are you serious?
Yeah.
I didn't know that's where that came from. I always thought that was strange. Okay.
Yeah. Mithra, the ancient Persian god. What's he doing? He's slaying the black bull.
Wow.
Black bull is the black gods, the black powerful people that we used to rule the earth. We were the ones on the top. We were the ones discriminating.
Not that we should, but anyway, I get your point.
You look at the old Arab treatises and you'll find them writing, these red-skinned people. That's their expression of white people because they burn in the sun. They get red. These are slaves. That's all they're good for. So the whole thing turns on its head. So make a long story short, you gotta open up whatever you do in the name of your ancestors, in the name of your god or your gods. And so I dedicate this graphic novel to the ancient people of that land, Sweden, which I consider our people. I consider these ancient people rooted to the African, very close to the African.
Sure.
So this is when you open that graphic novel and you see that reindeer, you see that big, beautiful face in the rain, in the antlers, you say, wow, That is the opening.
You're paying homage.
I'm paying homage, right? Exactly.
Mm-hmm.
To the first people of that land.
That's beautiful.
And then you'll see in the rain, what does it open up? The first page opens up in a rainstorm.
Mm-hmm.
So it's like this reindeer, this ancient creature connected to the gods, is looking across Sweden at Badin in his dream state when you open the graphic novel.
That's beautiful. So, this is a novel that everybody should have in their collection. And I'm definitely going to add the print to my collection. Eric, it has been a pleasure talking to you, brother. I want everybody within the sound of my voice to pick up this novel, and you don't got to wait till May, right? You can go to jonathansoul.com and you can click on the link and pick it up early.
That's
you
right,
can also go ahead.
You got to go to jonathansoul.com. You can't go to badinsecret.com. You're not going to get it.
Right. This is a special setup. This is the hookup. You know what I mean? One brother to another. It's the hookup. You understand that you get it, jonathansoul.com, man.
Yep.
so I appreciate that. And we want to support this brother and his family. You know what I mean? This is my life can be boiled down into one word, which is stories. Right? Yes. I'm a collector of stories. Yes. And one of the stories that I'm collecting is the stories of African American people becoming. Okay? And the people I choose to focus on is the artist, is the writer. How they come from, pages in a sketchbook, an idea on a train, into graphic novels, into movies, into, legacy. And so we're watching the Bashir family story at this point, right? The ones who was kind enough to bring us this historic fiction, Badin and the Secret of the Psalming. So I want everybody who's serious to go to jonathansoul.com and pick up this book. You can get the ebook and you can get the paper. Is it paperback or hardcover, Eric? Right now we're paperback. That's fine. That's fine. Yeah. All my graphic novels are paperback. That's fine. When you go to jonathansoul.com too, I want to just say this, man. You got to get a Kindle app or a Kindle or whatever, iPhone or something, Android. They got to get your book, Malcolm Mars. Oh, wow. I appreciate it, brother. I appreciate it. Because I'm reading, Jonathan Soul's book, and I bought it. It's real cheap. It's $2.99. Yep. I mean, come on. That's recession prices. I mean, come on. I mean, that's like, I'm broke, okay? I'm buying it. That's beautiful. I appreciate the support, brother. I'm buying it, and I'm reading it, and it's about this black family that's escaping the Earth to live on Mars. Yep. And it opens up in action, and I loved it so much. I was inspired to sketch up a graphic novel page. Yeah, you can see it on Twitter. If you go to my Twitter, I've reposted it. That was beautiful. I'm gonna finish it. I'm gonna finish that page and do it for you as a gift. But I really want everyone else, though, if you're gonna give Badin the secret, Badin the Secret of the Sami, which is about the past, you have to get Malcolm Mars, which is about the future. It's beautiful. That's beautiful. Appreciate it, brother. Go ahead and give everybody your websites and then your social media. All your businesses, because we can support them. We all need those kind of services. Well, I appreciate that. Go ahead. Photografix.pro, PHOTOGRAFIX.pro. And I'll just give you badinsecret.com, those two. Fantastic. Yeah. And that'll get you everything you need. And I'm definitely available to answer questions and indulgences and whatever. And is your schedule open for other appearances on podcasts? Yes, I would love to entertain anybody in any language. Okay. That's beautiful. That's beautiful. Listen, Eric Bashir, brother, it's been a pleasure to speak with you again. Thank you.